You're wearing a sweater that was selected for you by the people in this room from a pile of stuff.
Give me a full ballerina skirt and a hint of saloon, and I'm on board.
I have a hole in my stomach!
I can't go back.
Welcome to the She Became Visible podcast. I'm your host, Renee Steelman. This podcast is my story. It's your story. It's our story. It's all the stories of all the women who one day knew that it was time to remember who they were, who they are, and stand up and be seen.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome, Lila. How are you?
I am good. Thank you. How are you?
Crazy as usual, running around like a crazy person, but I feel good. I feel like I'm getting things done. So, not too bad.
That's good. And you're in Utah at the moment, correct?
Yeah, had to buzz up to Utah for a little bit, and it's raining.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, I don't remember seeing that on the forecast.
No,
but
I'm sorry. It's just how it is here, You can never, from minute to minute, it changes. That's Utah.
Yeah, exactly. It was really beautiful when I got here, and I thought I read like high of 70 something, and I thought, oh, that's perfect,
Yeah.
And then it just kind of got colder and colder as the day went on. I was like, what is happening? So I haven't even looked at it to see what's going to happen tomorrow, but I'm actually flying back to Arizona tomorrow. So just had to buzz up for some phone issues. That's crazy that you have to fly to another state to get your phone fixed. But
That's crazy. That's insane. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited about tonight because I feel like if anybody is really hooked on the Chad Daybell, Lori Vallow trial things that's going on right now, there are a lot of women involved in this case.
Yeah.
Lauren Matthias from Hidden True Crimes is like major journalist. She is really covering this so excellently.
Yeah.
And the people that she's interviewing are the cousins, the sisters, the aunts. They're the women that were involved in Lori's life and Chad's life and Tammy Daybell's life. And it's just a very women-centric kind of theme that's going on. And it's fascinating. Even if you get on like the Lori Vallow Reddit, there's just and I think it's because the idea that a mother could kill her children is just like with nothing.
Oh yeah. It's just beyond horrible. It's hard to believe that someone who started out, as a really good mom, that's by all accounts, she was a great mom. She was really good with what is it? Sorry, TJ.
Oh yeah, JJ. Yeah.
And it's just so sad. I just can't imagine going down that deep of a path. And then where she is now, which is it's just a horrible story. And this is a Mormon, this is someone that you'd think this would never happen. Right.
And I think that's the thing is in one of the interviews when I think it was the defendant, John Pryor, he was interviewing Melanie, and he said something about Melanie making a comment where she wanted to protect the church, that she would talk to the detectives, but she wanted to make sure that she was protecting the church. And he kept trying to get her to talk about that. But I think as much as you want to try and protect the church, I think we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight, that you cannot take this baby out of the bathwater, because this bathwater is swimming in that baby, and that baby is the Mormon Church. And I don't know if that's a good analogy, but it's just part of the soup. It's like the bone that's inside that broth. And you cannot say, no, that soup is bone broth, but there was never a bone in it, you know?
Yeah.
And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. I want to try and stay focused because when you start following this, talk about a rabbit hole.
Yes.
You start watching, you know, and pretty soon your brain is just like, that's good. Oh, that's good. You know, that kind of thing. So
there's a lot to it. It's very, there's all these players, you know, there's the friends, there's the group that was the, what they call it, preparing a people. That group is all part of the mindset, the books that fed into it, you know, Visions of Glory, and just how it seemed benign. And then as it continues to go down the path, it becomes more and more dangerous and more toxic, till look where we are.
I know. It really is. And I think what we're going to really highlight tonight, I think, is that we're going to try to kind of focus on Melanie Gibb, because I heard a little bit today, and I think I had missed this. Evidently, John Pryor, the defending attorney, is trying to subpoena Melanie Gibb, and she just won't accept it. He tried to hand her a subpoena in court, and she said, I'm not going to take it. And then someone said, you can't give that to her when she's, you know, on the stand or in court. And this other lawyer looked up all the rules in Idaho and said, actually, you can subpoena someone anywhere, any place, anytime.
Yeah.
And so he's trying to subpoena her, and he's trying to bring her in. And I would love to see that, because our title for the show tonight is Melanie Gibb is a liar. And we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about how she's not unique. Melanie Gibb is not unique when these little clusters start to form in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, otherwise known as Mormons. These little clusters of Bible study people and
preparing a people.
Yeah, preparing a people. Yeah, that little cluster, and you get these little clusters of fanatics, and they seem to be prevalent in Idaho and Arizona.
Yeah.
There's so much going on in Arizona right now with, you know, just even if it's like one step over, there's still a tie to the Mormon Church. It's insane. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So let me bring my slide on, so that I can probably hope to stay in focus. So what we're going to talk about is the danger of blind obedience, of pure acceptance. And I think that this is not something that comes naturally to members of the church, but it's something that's taught and indoctrinated. And partially certain aspects are brought in through the Mormon Church, but there's this idea that if you are Christ-like, you will accept people and their quirkiness and their weirdo-ness, and you will love them in spite of it. And you turn off that natural instinct that says, you're crazy and you're dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I think so that's kind of what we're going to talk about. I want to start out by introducing Julie Rowe, because she doesn't play a part in the actual murder of the children, but she plays a part in Chad Daybell and his sequence to become who he is today.
Yeah.
And let me see if I can actually read this. Had you heard of Julie Rowe before?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, out in Utah, I think she's more prevalent. Where did you hear? Oh, come back. What happened? Oh, okay, that didn't work. Where did you first hear about her?
Well, I heard about her years ago. A friend of mine was a follower, and the red flags go up anytime this friend of mine talks about a guru, because they're usually crazy people. So anyway, so I looked her up, and I watched a few of her podcasts. She considers herself to be a prophetess, basically, she has visions and she's had multiple lives. And you know what? If people want to believe they've had multiple lives, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But it's when they start using that as a tool to create some sort of hierarchy where they are on a higher level, and that you need to listen to them because they've experienced something that we all need to follow. And Julie Rowe's very much one of those. She's an end of timer, prepper, making a lot of prophecies of end of days. And she prophesied that the world would come to an end in 2019. And then when it didn't happen, she sort of moved the goalpost, you know. But then she started talking about Tylee and JJ during this whole thing, saying that they were okay and that she saw in her mind in a vision playing on the beach and that they were fine. And then found out that wasn't the case at all. So she's kind of fallen out of favor.
Yeah. And if you didn't know her background and you were just listening to the trial right now live, you would be wondering, why does John Pryor keep trying to get people to talk about energy work? Like he tried it with David Warwick, he tried it with Melanie Gibb, he's tried it, I think, with one of the other cousins, and they all kind of look at him and go, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know anything about energy work. And then when you listen to Julie Rowe, she talks about energy work. And I love this description. She says she is an American author and she claims to have had a near-death experience in 2004, during which she also claims to have had visions pertaining to end-time events. Rowe published her account in a series of books. A longtime member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Rowe notably appealed to a Mormon audience. In 2015, she caused fears in some Mormon circles with her prediction that the world would end with the September lunar eclipse. The LDS Church responded by issuing a call for calm and stressing that it did not endorse Rowe's views. Now, I find that hilarious because I don't live in Utah, so we don't get we don't have KSL news. So the church is not in the news, outside of Utah. So I don't remember a bishop or anybody reading a letter over the pulpit, but to have the church have to come out and calm the church down means she had a following.
Oh yeah. Big following. Yeah.
Amazing.
I think she still does, but I think she's kind of, like I said, fallen out of favor a little bit because several of her prophecies have not come to pass.
Yeah, so, well, that sounds like Joseph Smith.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is like the church is a breeding ground for these kinds of people.
Yes.
If anyone has just a little bit of a mental, grandiose sort of narcissistic mindset, they can go hog wild in this church because it is perfect for that. It is
perfect.
Yeah. It really
Yeah. It said the LDS Church education system placed Rowe's book, A Greater Tomorrow, on a list of spurious materials that was circulated to teachers of high school seminaries and to college-age institutes of religion. The list stated, although Sister Rowe is an active member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, her book is not endorsed by the church and should not be recommended to students or used as a resource in teaching them. The experiences she shares are her own personal experiences. And in April 2019, Rowe was excommunicated from the LDS Church. Oh my gosh. But you're absolutely right. So this is what we've decided, that first of all, and it's the same thing with Ruby Franke, these ideas do not germinate in sterile soil. They are not coming from nowhere. Right. There is something that's growing these thoughts, and they are declared truths until they're not. Yeah. And the church has done the same thing with Julie Rowe and Chad Daybell and like you said, the prepper organizations. They just stay quiet. Yeah. They don't say anything until they start killing people. Yeah. Or raping people like Tim,
Now, I mean, they didn't say a word about it in conference.
No.
Nothing.
Tim Ballard wasn't mentioned at all. There wasn't any warning. They don't, right now, when they're I know the Mormonish is doing a lot of covering of the Mormon temples that are being built, and the church from Salt Lake is sending out letters to be read over the pulpit, encouraging people to write letters to their school boards and their local people. How come they're not sending out a letter saying, if you've got cuckoos in your ward that are standing up every month in testimony meeting and talking about prepping or visions or dreams or premonitions, you need to call them and shut it down.
No kidding. But no, they don't say that. This is what is so weird. The church's priorities are completely wacko. They're allowing people to go out and murder people, not saying a word.
Yeah.
When it comes to somebody not wanting a temple in that neighborhood, all hell breaks loose, and they're writing letters and getting people to freak out. But
yeah, exactly
about the prepper movement.
Yeah, exactly. And like just exactly like you said, when you have extreme minds, and they always seem to be the people that are kind of left out. I put in this paragraph that extreme minds will always take a theory that can self-aggrandize the unsuccessful cipher. So you've got people like Chad Daybell. Now, from what I've understood, he has a couple of brothers that are very successful, very well educated, successful businessmen, financially successful. And Chad is nothing. He was a grave digger. I heard one of the people, they said, what did he do for a living? And they said he was a sexton. And I was like, well, I got to look that up. I've never heard of a sexton. Yeah. Well, it means he was a grave digger. And now they're showing that house that they bought in Idaho. And it was just, an old 1960s ranch. It was just nothing. And Tammy was putting, she probably was providing the family insurance, medical care, a retirement. She was keeping that family. She was running that, editing company that they had, and the book producing company. She was doing everything. And then I heard someone today say that at her funeral, at her memorial, that Chad was saying really disparaging things about her. She was lazy. She was depressed. She was hard to get along with. At her funeral, he was saying this.
That's really, that's unbelievable. I mean, I don't even know what to say about that. That's just horrific.
And the sad thing about it is on the other hand, you have a bishop who was their bishop when they lived in Springville, which is where Tammy was from, her friends, her family. She didn't want to move to Idaho. And the bishop made Chad his executive secretary and had nothing but beautiful things to say about Chad. And then when they moved to Idaho, he also served as an executive secretary. And while Tammy's trying to, plug up the holes in the dam and keep the family, going. And again, just like in the patriarchy that you see so often, Chad's being patted on the back as this nice guy. And Tammy probably was depressed because she was exhausted.
Yeah.
Who
wouldn't be being married to that guy? And isn't it interesting that he was a grave digger, and he ended up digging graves in his own backyard and burying children, and
didn't do a very good job, actually.
Well, put him in anyway. Ugh.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that we're going to center on tonight is that when you turn off your critical thinking, which is what the church leaders tell you to do, they tell you to stop thinking. The prophet has spoken. There is no more discussion. And they create this blindness, and you should accept what they say. Don't question it. Don't doubt it. Just do what we say, not as we do. And that makes people turn off that natural instinct.
Absolutely. And it's a trusting, it's a, not my will, but thine kind of attitude. And so people will continue to do what they think they're supposed to do against their better judgment for the most part of their lives. They'll feel these red flags come up, or these flashing lights, run away.
Yes.
The other direction, but they will ignore that because they admire their bishop and they don't know
Yeah.
that he's molesting children behind their back. I mean, this is what happens in these kind of, like I said, it's like a petri dish that allows this sort of algae to grow and become
Yeah.
toxic.
Exactly. I wanted to read this paragraph. It's from an article that was written by a Richard Heinberg. And the article was called, "You May Think You're Immune to Cult Thinking, but We're All Susceptible." And he says, conspiracy theories are not the same as cults, but the two phenomena often coexist. Would-be cult leaders frequently adopt conspiracy theories or invent them so as to have an ideological basis for attracting followers. People who are aware of society's blind spots are often attracted to would-be cult leaders because the former need a new worldview to replace the flawed one they are reacting against, and the latter fill that need.
Mm.
And I thought, wow. And he starts out by saying, times of social upheaval or rapid social change tend to generate new religious movements and what are often called cults. And he talks about the 17th century with the English Civil War and the emergence of Puritanism and the Pilgrims and the Revolutionary War and the Second Great Awakening and the rise of evangelical Protestant majority and the beginning of the Mormon Church. It was all because there was so much change going on, and people were like, I just need things to be on course. And so they'll go to these religious or these cult groups that will give them like, okay, this is what we're going to do. It's always going to be the same. I'm going to tell you what to do, what to wear, what to eat. And the people are like, good, because I can't think about that. And that's where we're at right now. We're all in that same situation in the world right now. And so the evangelical movement is big right now because people just want to go back to the peace that they felt they had. Depends on if you're what.
Chaos. It's the chaos in the
Yes.
world that creates this need for some kind of structure and
Yep.
something they can sort of rely on so that they don't have to think it all through. It's like like I said, there's this type of person, and maybe we're all susceptible, like he said, but there's a certain type of person that's always looking for a guru because they don't trust their own minds. They don't trust their own rationale. So they're always looking for someone to tell them how to live, what to think, what to do on a daily basis. Like they need that guru, whether some people turn to sorry, I can't think of the word right now. The zodiac, Yes.
Horoscopes. Yeah.
Yeah. Some go to like a psychic. Some go, and that's why Julie Rose so popular because she had that psychic way about her, and she could tell people, who's this?
Okay. So that's exactly. So this is Julie Rowe. And I'm gonna zoom up to her.
I thought you invited her into our conversation.
Yes. Hi, Julie.
Julie, how nice to see you.
Yeah. So sorry about all the bad things we just said about you.
Yeah.
Let me go to just to give the audience a little idea of what we're talking about here, because then I want to go to what we're talking about when you've got these really nice, good people who followed her. And like you say, she has a new Wasatch Woke, I think is her new group.
Oh, is that?
And she has like a Friends of Julie Facebook page or something. So she still has followers. But let me zoom up here and get to where she kind of starts going to, well, she's mad. This is called Julie is Pissed.
Okay.
That's what this is called. And I'd be like, well, that's an understatement if I've ever heard one. All right. So let me give you a little, this is what we're working with, people. So watch this.
What's the timing on this? Do you know? Is this before the whole, Chad Daybell thing, or is
I think it's pretty current. I think it's pretty current because she said, this is my last live. She's gonna do one more live in June, and then she's done. So it may be pretty current. I don't know if it says on here somewhere. I'll see if I can find it. So let me go to this. Let's see what we can do here. If I can go put us at the bottom here. Okay, here we go.
I wasn't trying to deceive anyone. I did not know that they had passed to the other side. But I did do an interview with Nate Eaton the Friday before the Tuesday the news broke out that the bodies were found on Chad's property. And East Idaho News willingly chose not to air my video, where I came out publicly for over an hour telling Nate Eaton that Chad had killed the kids. I have told media and FBI what I know. I have worked with the FBI. I have called the Rexburg Police Department and left messages. That's on them. I have done nothing but tell the truth. I have 46 contacts of media that I've talked to, and probably close to 200 hours of media that I have given information. And you guys have seen what the media has done with it. Very little. So I continue to take bullets in social media and from all kinds of people because they think, based on what the media's put out there, the little clips that I've said, that I was in cahoots with Chad Daybell, or that I was holding out, or that I knew something. This is bullshit. Tribulations in great sorrow. As from a distance, I watch millions of people suffer and die. But this is no different than what I've experienced for the last 16 years of my life, almost 17. And really, since I came to the planet as a small child, with visuals, being able to see into the future at the age of 3 years old. I do not expect you to understand. I expect empathy and kindness to me and everybody else on this planet. And if we can't have that, then let this world burn.
Okay, well, that's fun. That's what we're working with here, folks. Mm-hmm. And she goes on, and she even made a comment, which I thought, oh, girlfriend, you need to check yourself before you get on these lives. She said, my divorce is finally final. It took 7 months to get divorced. It should have only taken 3. And then she said, and I'm finally able, she said, I'm living in an apartment, but I'm going to build a house because I'm going to live up in the mountains because I'm preparing for the earthquake, and Russia is going to be invading Tucson, Arizona. And there were a couple of other things. And she said, I warned you, and she goes, it took way too long to close on this house that I'm building because I live in Utah, and Satan was working against me. Mm-hmm. And it was like, oh my gosh, there is no accountability for anybody's behavior. It's either God did it or Satan did it.
Yep. One or the other. And once again, she's putting herself out there to say, this is going to happen here at this time. And then when it doesn't, did you hear that? She said, I've been trying to tell you, and the media shut me down. They wouldn't say what I was trying to tell everyone, that they had passed on. No, she wasn't. No. She was saying that she saw them still alive. So she's now flipping the narrative so that she doesn't look like an idiot.
Yeah. And she said exactly what you said, that she had seen a vision, and she saw JJ and Tylee, and they were on a beach. And then she said, my visions are so good that I have a hard time differentiating between what's real and what's a vision. And so when I saw them on a beach, I thought it was a vision of them currently on a beach. And that's why I was mistaken. And then I love this. At first, she just says, I am a visionary and I've had these gifts since I was 3 years old. But then earlier she said, the reason I didn't know that they were already dead is because my visionary skills have not been refined yet.
Unbelievable.
I know.
Just the way they will just, tweak it. It's Joseph Smith. It's the same thing. And like when he'd get it wrong, well, some visions are of man, some visions are of God, some visions are of the devil.
Yes.
It's like, how will we ever know which one is which?
Exactly. And it was even funny because I was listening to this other guy, because that's the skill, that's the tool that the apologists use. Because, it goes back to Bill Clinton when he was accused of, sexually molesting Monica Lewinsky. And they said, did you have sex? And he said, it all depends on what is. And that's what the apologists are like. Well, it all depends on what I know the church is true, or I believe the church is true. Believing is the same as knowing.
Sure.
And I'm like,
change
well,
word. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, flip, yeah. These tricks are as old as his toes. It's like flipping the narrative, changing the meaning of words to not mean what they really mean. Well, don't you know that, revelation doesn't really mean revelation. It means, it means translation doesn't mean revelation or something like that. They'll just flip it all up. And that's what she's doing. She's backpedaling big time.
Right.
And I feel bad for her because she's so confused. She so believes that she's this prophetess, and she's just really not. She's gotten it wrong.
Yeah.
She's gotten it wrong over and over.
Well, and this is the scary part. So watch this. This was a couple days ago. Lauren Matthias, as I said, is covering the case, and she came out. She always does like a live lunch right when they break for lunch, and she'll do a recap. So she was doing a recap, and she brought this friend on with her. And listen to this friend.
So I was introduced to that scale when Julie told me that I was a 4.2 light, which don't believe anymore. You guys should know that.
Okay, but do you hear how she said, I don't believe it anymore?
Yes.
But she was a believer.
I reached out to Eric Smith, and I've talked to him about the scale. And I said, where did this come from? I wanted to know if he knew, because he was kind of in that first wave. As I was kind of coming in, he was kind of coming out. And I wanted to know, that's awfully close.
They can hear you. Okay, but I'll go like that.
You're fine.
I'll make you a little more cozy.
It's fine.
Here, hold on. Okay, there we go.
Okay, so, yes, from
Eric Smith. We interviewed Eric. He's on our YouTube channel. Eric Smith, a friend of Chad Daybell. And
he's a friend of mine.
And a friend of yours.
He's a good guy, guys. He's a good guy. Said that people were talking about this light and dark thing on Freedom Forum. He had been introduced to LDS Freedom Forum, and he'd been introduced to it. He kind of was researching it. There were some concepts there. I mean, I don't want to speak for him, but this is kind of like in a conversation that we had. There was concepts there that were like interesting to him because he had questions about like people coming down and like from, pre-mortal, and people sometimes are innately evil, and you have good people. And so there was just these like concepts that he was researching. Well, he took that to Chad and Julie, and he said they ran with it. So they kind of took it, they started labeling people as dark and light, and it went to a new level. And I'm telling you that hearing that Tammy believed in this system does not surprise me, does not shock me at all, because there are lots of people, I'm telling you, lots of people that heard this and believed in this light and dark system, but not at the level that these guys took it, and not where it was like labeling like, oh, you're dark and you're light and it was more like the 4.2 was like, oh, I've been down here 4 times in multiple probations. I've had 4 different times here. It was explained to us a little differently. They took it, twisted it, and I believe that Tammy more believed it the way I believed it, and a lot of other people believed it in more of an interesting way, of a concept of something new information, and that's interesting, not in a, oh my gosh, this one's a zombie, this one's dark. So anyway, I think they took it in a way that was hurting people. I don't think Tammy took it that way, and I don't think this was shocking. Of course she's going to hear that from Chad. She heard it from Julie Rowe. She heard it from lots of people. We all did. So anyway, I just want to make that clear, because I feel like people are like, oh my gosh, Tammy, she believed in this, she believed in this. No, not at that. My personal opinion, that's just what I want.
Okay.
So that was a tough one to listen to, because again, not living in Idaho, I wasn't aware of any of the stuff that was going on. But 3 years ago, it was about 3 years ago, we brought my mom to Arizona for Christmas, and my mom lives in South Jordan, Utah. Mm-hmm. And she said, have you ever heard of Julie Rowe? And I said, no. And she goes, oh, she's amazing. She has studied the book of Daniel, and she has figured out that the 7 times 7 times 144 times 3 divided by 7, whatever it is, she's figured out when Jesus is going to be the second coming, when the second coming is going to be. And I said, yeah, I don't I don't think so, Mom. And she said, no. And Mom has a way of defending people because if they're not financially benefiting from it, then it's just, inspiration. It's just the kindness of their hearts. So she said, she's just going around and doing firesides. She's not making any money off this. I said, yes, she is, Mom. I said, she obviously has a following and there's a method to this. And I said the same thing to her that I remember hearing. Oh, David Warwick said the same thing to Chad when Chad was saying that, Lori and I are going to be bringing in the 144,000. And David Warwick said, I don't think that's your job.
Yeah.
I think, and I said that to Mom. I said, Mom, I think if there was some kind of knowledge that we should all know, that it would be coming from President Nelson, and, but my mom, before we joined the church, her family, she had 5 sisters. They loved getting together, playing games. We played the Ouija board all the time. And spooky. I mean, I think my mom joined the church because she loved the mythology.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so she was like, oh no, she was a big Julie Rowe follower. And I was like, okay, there you go.
It is very appealing to people who like that kind of mysticism and sort of fantastical, it's that type of thinking. I know these types. I have friends that are like that, and everything. They don't want to talk about anything that has to do with science. They don't want to talk about anything that where there's an actual, facts that and studies that have been done that are, factual. They want to talk about things that are mysteries.
Right.
That's what they like. So, you get into the mystery stuff and they just love it and eat it up. And so they get played by these kind of people.
And the thing, and this is what I was trying to tell my poor believing husband. I said, when the difference between the Mormon Church and Christianity, like the Christian nationalist movement that's going on right now, is based on biblical teachings that these people have cherry picked and proof text and taken out of context to fit what they want to happen in America right now. But they all can get together and believe in Jesus and the scriptures of the Bible. Mormonism is based on mysticism, just as you said. Yeah. It's based on an angel appearing, a golden book that was delivered to Joseph Smith, but then taken away and no one saw it. Yeah. And magical prophets from Israel, and everything about it is based in mysticism. That's and right. So priesthood power, priesthood blessings, visions, everything is based on mysticism. It's not even based on the teachings of Jesus. That's not the base. That's not the foundation of the Mormon Church.
Jesus didn't talk like that.
No. I mean, now they're trying to make it out. And I'm sure, if you really were to ask people in my demographic, what exactly are the teachings of Jesus? They'd like, I don't know. Was that a gospel doctrine class last week? I don't know. What that would be.
Oh, yeah. This is crazy. This is crazy talk. I have a daughter whose best friend was always talking about, we're going to have to move away and go to tent cities in the mountains, and we're going to have to, I hope you have your family has this, the food storage and the tents and everything, right? And she'd come to me and say, Mom, do we have stuff for when we have to go live in tent cities? And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, well, Demi's mom keeps saying this, And so I asked her, I said, where are you getting this information?
Yeah.
Oh, have you read the book, Visions of Glory?
Yeah.
No. So I got the book, read the book, and I was like, this is a bunch of, what? This is, this is crazy talk, because this is some guy who claims to have had a near-death experience where he saw all these calamities happen, where a lot of the church wasn't prepared for it, and that you had to be, a certain type of person who could get the visions and see the things that this guy was channeling. And he said, not everyone's going to be ready. And if you're not ready, you're going to go down. You're going to go down with all the evil people. So you better, pay attention to what I'm saying, because I saw this in my near-death experience.
Right.
Well, I knew better because I myself had had a near-death experience, but mine was very just clinical. You know, I had an experience, had nothing to do with the end of the world, had nothing to do with Mormonism, let alone that. Mine was just very peaceful, and I had a feeling of love, and I had this, you know, feeling of, I came back kind of euphoric and feeling like all that matters is loving your neighbor and your families, and, you know, learning to love people. That's what I came back with. And I don't know, maybe it was all, you know, brain activity. I don't know. I'm not going to say absolutely I had an, you know, experience where I left my body and I went to another world. It could have all just been manufactured in my brain, but I didn't have any of those experiences. So I'm like, this guy's writing a book and he's making money off of people that are just sucking it, you know, all in. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. Like your experience was about you.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't wake up and go, therefore, I now have a prophecy for the entire world because I had this. And that's where they take it to that next weirdo level.
Use it as a tool to manipulate people. I mean, they have people sinking thousands of dollars into buying these massive tents that have plumbing and you know, all kinds of stuff. They've got to buy all these tools and generators, and, you know, it's like they're preparing for Armageddon, and they're going to be living up in the mountains. And if you don't have your stuff, you have to have your shoes by your bed and be ready. Get up and go, because when the call comes out, if you're not ready, you're going to die. So they got all people scared to death.
Yeah.
Panicking. Like, anyway.
Well, and exactly what we were saying, these thoughts and these ideas, and I think there's probably two waves. There's like the preppers who are just, please give me an excuse to have an AK-47. I just want to be able to legally and comfortably say I have a stash of guns in my, you know, bedroom. There's that group, and then there's the people, like you say, that are sure that the second coming, and before God comes, there's going to be bloodshed, a red moon, you know, and the whole bit. And so that does not. So let me show you a slide with a perfect example of why we have Ruby Frankie and Spring Thibodeau and all of the weirdos that are coming out of Gilbert in Utah. And this is why. So
dear children, and the thousands of others.
Okay, so this is Henry B. Eyring. He's like the second counselor in the first presidency of the Mormon Church. And he's talking about when the dam broke in Idaho back in the 70s.
Yes.
And so this is his recollection of this, with this horrible thing that killed hundreds.
Affected by the tragic event. I recall Kathy pacing the floors into the early hours of the morning with worry about her children. Despite my own concerns, I was able to put my mind at ease and fall asleep. It wasn't long thereafter that my sweet eternal companion woke me and said, "Hal, how can you sleep at a time like this?" These words then came clearly to my heart and mind. And so I said to my wife, "Kathy, whatever the outcome, all will be well. Because of the temple, we have made covenants with God and have been sealed as an eternal family." At that moment, it was as if the Spirit of the Lord confirmed in our hearts and minds what we both knew already to be true. The sealing ordinances found only in the house of the Lord and administered by proper priesthood authority had bound us together as husband and wife, and our children have been sealed to us. There truly was no need to fear, and we were grateful later to learn that our boys were safe. Perhaps this statement from President Thomas S. Monson best illustrates what Kathy and I felt on that unforgettable night. Quote, "As we attend the temple, there can come to us a dimension of spirituality, a feeling of peace. We will grasp the true meaning of the words of the Savior when he said, 'Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you.'"
Okay. So he's fine because they've all been sealed together as a family in the temple. I don't know about those other people that were killed when the dam broke in Idaho. What was the name of that stupid dam? Why can't I think of it? Damn it. No.
Was it the Teton? No.
I know it was a T word. I want to say Timpanogos. Like, no, I'm back in Utah. I'm picking up all these names.
No, but I'm up there with my.
It was the Teton. Yeah.
It was Spring City was the little city that got wiped out, basically, that was in the path of it. And we went up there, my whole MIA group, and dug people out of the mud and everything. That was one of our activities. But I'm trying to think, I think that's what it was, but it was an earth dam. Yeah. And it broke.
Yeah. Yeah. And people were killed, and he went to sleep laughing. That's fine.
I thought we weren't supposed to say all is well in Zion. Don't worry, all is well. That's exactly what he said. All will be well. We've been sealed in the temple. We're fine. Don't worry about the people that are dying and drowning.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that I thought was ironic was both Chad and Lori Daybell have temple recommends. And they attended the temple in Gilbert, Arizona together. Yeah. And they were doing sealings for the dead. And then they counted those sealings as their own sealing because he had a vision that they had been married in the pre-existence, and which is not part of the Mormon doctrine. We don't get married in the pre-existence, but they had been married in a pre-life. And so, yeah. And they would often go to the temple together before they would go out and do one of their treacherous acts. So it's like, I was even thinking both of their spouses were dead when they went to Hawaii and were married on the beach. Why didn't they get married in the temple?
I don't know. I thought they already were married in the temple. Married.
Well, oh, maybe that's it. Because I don't remember if she was sealed to Charles. Was Charles a member? Charles Vallow?
Oh, I think she was sealed to Charles. I think he was.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Into that. Yeah, that's a good question, though. Why did they feel the need to get married civilly?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, but that makes sense. That makes sense. If she was sealed to him, then she wouldn't be able to be sealed to Chad. So that would make sense.
Yeah, I don't think they were keeping any of those rules. They just because they had been married to each other in prior life, that superseded everything. It trumped it. So.
Yeah, I don't think they would have passed that bishop's interview. In fact, when Lori Vallow was on trial and they were interviewing Melanie, we got to sneak into Melanie here because I know that was the title of my thing. I remember listening and have Melanie tell her story, and I remember going, "Okay, so you're dating this guy, but you're staying overnight at Lori's house in Arizona, and your story is that you were staying in JJ's room." Right. JJ was in Lori's room, but you went to bed and you just talked and read your scriptures. So she tried to tell that story as if they, and then they separated. But then she made the mistake of saying, David woke with a horrible dream and vision that he had had. And I tried to calm him down. I'm like, "Oh, so you were there? You were there in the bedroom? So, okay, So then,
yeah.
Yeah. So then, and I love it because Pryor picked right up on it and goes, "Oh, so you were criticizing Chad and because he was, having an affair with Lori while he was still married, but you were having an affair with Melanie." And he's like, "Well, my divorce hadn't gone through yet, and I misread the information, and I was supposed to wait 30 days, but I didn't know that. I'm like, oh, you wasted no time.
Yeah.
No time. You booked a ticket to Pocatello with your girlfriend. So let's, I mean, it was just, you have to be a member of the church to pick up on all this.
Yes.
But getting back to Melanie. So she says, I met Lori Vallow when she was teaching, I think she was teaching gospel doctrine, and Lori was in her class and came up and said something, and they became fast friends, spoke every day.
Right.
And so they were like this, we're going to play the clip from this friend that Melanie called. And we're just going to start talking a little bit about how her and her husband, David, are trying to set this scene. Like they are signaling, they are righteous signaling. Like David in his testimony would say things like, Chad wanted me to go out and look at this land, but I said to him, I don't work on Sunday. We don't do that in our church. I keep the Sabbath day holy.
You're saying, I'm more holy than you are. I'm more righteous.
Yeah.
I don't work on Sunday.
So they throw these little things out, and then they, and then they'll say, but I went out and looked at the land. But so let's listen to her story of how she kind of met Melanie Gibb and where this whole thing is going.
Okay. And it was out west, and it was at the hot springs or whatever springs, Saratoga Springs.
Oh yeah, okay.
And at night we just was free time, and all these women were around just one little somebody's iPod or something, and this guy named Mike Stroud was live with his wife talking, and I didn't know who they were, but I knew I just felt the excitement of everybody. So I listened to it. He gave a talk, kind of like a church talk. I don't even remember exactly what it was, but they're like, oh, he's wonderful, and you should, and they told me that I should listen to his podcast. So they told me how to download it and everything. So I started listening to his weekly podcast.
And I'm going to just interrupt quickly and say, for those, Mike Stroud, we've learned, was Jason Mao's seminary teacher.
Exactly.
He's now an excommunicated member of the church for teaching doctrine that the church did not want him to be teaching. And he was someone that Lori Vallow Daybell liked and listened to. Sorry, go ahead. Just help people understand.
Once again, eventually they get excommunicated, right?
Well, I don't know why it took them. They have to wait for people to die. They wait for people to die and then excommunicate, it seems.
They let them go on, and they let them do their little following and their little, listen. Both of us have already taken our own movement to resign our membership, so we don't have to worry about this. But they start their podcast as this poor, sweet woman. I'm listening. We're surrounded by this iPad. You should listen to his podcast. Oh my gosh, he's so great. And then the church goes, oh crap, here we go again. We got to get rid of another. We got to, it's like a whack-a-mole,
One pops up.
Yeah.
Sure, I didn't know that, but he was very wonderful to listen to, but that's how I got connected to Jason. That's how I did, because I found out that he was his seminary teacher, and he gave another talk, and Jason, what's his last name?
Mao,
yes, Jason Mao introduced him. Mike Stroud, and said, "Oh, he was my seminary teacher so many years ago." Da, 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 da. So then, that was molested by a former husband and stuff, and so somehow that was like a really major same story. They all had like the same similar stuff.
What were those things? What were the similar things that each story had?
They had really extreme trials in their life that made them turn towards God, and like even like if they had a near-death experience or just trials, like Jason Mao, he was a police officer, and then both of his hands, I think it was like both of his he ripped.
What she's talking about there is she's talking about Melanie Gibb's book. And Melanie had written this book about finding God, and because she'd gone through all these traumatic experiences, and then, and then Chad has a near-death experience, and Julie Rowe has a near-death experience, and Lori Vallow starts saying that her first husband was molesting the children, And so they all have these horrible victim stories that they can then turn to Christ to save them. And that's what this sweet lady is listening to this and going, oh my gosh, that's so sad.
Feeling sorry for them, having empathy.
Yeah.
They all can relate on this level that they've all had difficulties and hard trials. And somehow that prepares them for becoming special somehow. Yeah. That they can,
and gives them credibility because they found God through all this. It's so sad.
He tore both of his main
hamstrings.
Are you talking when you say scary, the prepping and the revelation and the second coming, or are you talking about the energy healing? Can you specify what was so?
Not energy healing. I didn't know that was a part of their stuff. I had got introduced to energy healing, but it wasn't through them. And so it wasn't through them. But in the phone call, Melanie asked me about if I know about the emotion code. She asked me that, and that's how I somehow I just saw a seminar on Facebook about the guy that did the emotion code and whatever, and it ended up being really weird to me. So I didn't like it. I
said fast forward to the phone call.
Lori's phone. And text her, so she went over to talk to Lori, and it was him, and he had her phone. He was hugging her and crying and saying, "They're going to kill me. They think I'm Ned Snyder. They're going to kill me. You got to help me. I don't know what to do." And she's like, the way she talks, that she's just like, and she's like,
he gets me to come over to his house. He breaks into the house, and she's picking up the kids. He still is key. It's a lot of drama in that, but anyway, he says to me, and I thought it was Lori, but he had her cell phone, so he was trying to get me to come over. So I talked to him, so it freaked me out. And I get there, and it's him, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I talked to him, and he's like, Melanie, Lori's crazy. Like, she thinks that I'm this guy named Ned, and that she's trying to destroy my life. And I'm like, I just don't know what to say.
The way she talked to me on the phone, she wasn't shocked, and it wasn't like, oh, like, what did I get myself into? She was like, oh yeah, Lori wasn't smart telling him all these things.
She tells him, which is stupid. She says, I'm going to destroy you. She's like, you are not Charles anymore. You are Ned. I forgot his last name. Snyder. You're Ned Snyder, and you're not going to, you are, I am, she told him, I think she told him prior to this, but she was translated. She was married to Moroni before.
Oh my gosh.
Already expelled. So yeah, she's already telling him this stuff, which is not smart.
Like, she shouldn't have told him. They should have just killed him without him knowing about all this stuff.
She told him prior to this, but she was translated. She was married to Moroni before.
Oh my gosh.
Already expelled. So yeah, she's already telling him this stuff, which is not smart.
Oh my goodness.
And yeah, not.
Isn't that interesting? Which is not smart.
No,
you shouldn't be. You shouldn't be telling this guy all this stuff before you kill him. But I mean, that was a perfect. And the most interesting part was this lady at the end, when she gets through, she says, "I don't really know Melanie that well. I hadn't even really met her yet, and yet she said, I just wanted to tell you some stuff. You promised not to put it on Facebook or anything. She just had to tell somebody.
Yeah.
So she tells this poor sweet lady all of this stuff." You guys, you go back to listen to Hidden True Crimes. Lauren is so amazing.
Yeah.
But listen to the interview, and the difference in the tone of Melanie's voice. And now listen to her voice now as she's telling the story on stage. This is what's fascinating.
Did you record the phone call?
Yes.
Was someone there recording it for you?
No.
What device did you use to record it?
Cell phone.
Had law enforcement ask you to make this phone call?
No.
And you did, in fact, record it?
Correct.
Judge, I have what's been marked as State's Exhibit 42. It's a jump drive. I have a copy for counsel. And I would request to publish the first portion for identification purposes only.
All right. Before it's published, of course, we'll go through the question of admissibility. Mr. Pryor, is there any objection to Exhibit 42 being admitted?
I would have preferred a little more foundation, Judge, but at this point, I'm going to stipulate to the admission of the exhibit and allow her to move forward.
Okay, Exhibit 42 is admitted, but pending an additional or a first proffer.
Open the door to Satan, he comes in and then he attacks, and then he takes away to make it look like somebody else took it away. But that's not how God works. He doesn't work in darkness.
I agree with you 100%. And that's what the Lord is doing for me. Exactly what he's doing for me.
So just as information, in case any of you are out there, it's so funny when you know how you get focused on something and you think everybody else in the world is also focused on it. And then you ask somebody about it. They're like, who's Melanie Gibb?
Yeah.
You know, but she had called Chad, if anybody's up, and then Lori, to kind of yell at them for putting her in the position of having to lie to the police. What's interesting is that she actually lied to the police like 2 or 3 times. But so she was mad that they put her in that position. So she recorded a phone call where she called Lori. But here again, this is a perfect example of her saying, you let Satan in. You let this outside force in, and that's why you're doing these things that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely no accountability for their own. Yeah,
their own actions. I feel so sorry for Charles. He was reaching, he was desperately saying, she's gonna kill me. You guys, you don't get it. She's gonna kill me, and nobody would listen. They're like, really? I just feel so bad for him.
I know.
He was crying for help.
Yeah, and that's a perfect example of like what's going on right now with the Gilbert Goons and the Preston Lord that was killed in Gilbert, Arizona. And the police did the same thing with Charles. They have videotape of him saying, she's gonna kill me.
Yeah.
She thinks I'm a zombie. And they're like, oh, that's pretty funny, dude. Because he's a big guy, you know? And then even Melanie knew of the plan. Did she go? If she would have gone to the police and said, oh no, I've talked to Lori Vallow, she's planning on killing her husband. And then Charles said, she's planning on killing me. That may have made a difference.
Maybe. Yeah.
You know?
She got her brother Alex to do it. It was all planned. She in that phone call with the woman that you were showing a minute ago, Melanie says that the plan was that she was going to kill Charles, but through Alex in self-defense. They had planned he was going to do it in self-defense. So that he was going to initiate a fight and then get out of whatever. Did he shoot him with a gun? I can't remember if it was a gun.
Yeah. He went and got his gun.
Yeah.
And then supposedly.
But he had initiated the whole argument and created this drama so that he could then claim self-defense. And it was all planned out ahead of time.
Yeah.
And what bothers me is Melanie knew that.
Yes.
Melanie knew.
Yeah.
And she didn't do anything about it.
Well, and even when she talked about, I know in Lori's case, and I think she's doing a repetition in this case, talking about doing the podcast with Lori, and David was there and Chad was there. That was the night JJ was killed.
Yeah.
And, and David woke up with this weird vision, and I knocked on the door, and the next morning they said, where's JJ at? Did they go to the police?
No.
That next morning, did they say something's going on here? No, they just got in their car and went home.
Unbelievable.
No big deal. Yeah, it's crazy. Let's see if I can find the difference between when she's talking to the prosecution versus when she's talking to the defense. It's so interesting.
Oh, it just sounds weird. For darkness, Mel. Darkness is knocking on the door all the time because that's the way dark works with the light. And I promise you that I have done nothing wrong in this case, but sometimes you have to hide in a cavity of a rock for your own life safety. And that's what the Lord requires of you sometimes. And that's how it is. And I'm sorry that's how it is, because there is a lot of darkness on the earth.
I know. If she is dark or not, I've just met her slightly, and she seemed like a normal kind of person, but then I haven't engaged with her that much.
In this case, they're quoting the Book of Mormon. They're talking about how Mormon was on the earth by himself, and and all of these, and Abinadi, and they're quoting all these Book of Mormon stories of the prophets that were alone and lonely, and they had to hide in a rock, or They had to hide from the evil that was going on. And that's where I'm saying you cannot take the church out of this story. They're basing their actions on what they read in the foundational scriptures of the Mormon Church.
They're excusing what they're doing using scripture. Just like the Lafferty brothers did that. They used scripture for why they were killing these people. Same thing's happening. I mean, they're using straight out of the Book of Mormon, out of the Bible, examples so that they can justify what they're doing.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
So I don't know that personally.
So you don't know about her changing the thing for herself to be the beneficiary of the policy and all that stuff. None of that's dark, right?
Well, I haven't seen those documents, so I have no way of knowing.
I've seen them on my computer.
No, I have not. I haven't even looked on your computer before. You haven't showed me anything.
Being controversial to me, or if you're recording this conversation for the police or whatever, I don't know what your intention.
I love that part. Lori picks it up right away because she knows that Melanie was standing right there next to her, looking at her computer, saw that Charles had changed the will to give his sister Kate the benefits of his insurance. And now she's like, well, I don't know that for sure. I mean, I don't know, Kate. I don't know if that really happened. And Lori's like, are you recording this? Because this is all bullshit, you know? Mm-hmm. And I love how she called her out on that. It was like, oh, wow.
She is on this phone call. Well, I love with all my heart, and I have forever, and I will always love you.
I appreciate those words, but if you really loved me, you wouldn't have told the police that I had JJ with me. That's
okay. I'm going to fast forward and see if I can get. Oh, there we go. Here's
or
the
make
defense.
Comments about being able to tell if someone's light or dark. That's something that's inconsistent with the LDS faith.
Yes.
And that's not something you would ever do, right?
No.
You would never engage in conduct that would trying to determine whether someone's a light person or a dark person, right?
Well, I didn't have the ability to know how to do that.
Okay. And did you ever teach that? Light or dark?
I don't know if I shared it with anybody. I'm not sure.
Well, I didn't say shared. I said taught.
I don't recall.
Okay. Is it possible you taught light theory to people?
Oh, it's possible.
Is it possible you talked about dark theories to people?
It's possible.
Okay. But you don't remember.
I don't remember.
Okay. And I want to kind of lean into that a little bit about not remembering. Do you remember talking to Detective Moffat from the Arizona bound in Maricopa County some time ago when this case first started?
Yes.
Yeah. And do you remember talking to him about the fact that, you don't have the best memory in the world?
Yeah, I don't.
And the fact that you forget a lot of things.
Forget often.
Quite often, right?
I don't know. That's correct.
Well, what you told Detective Moffat was that ask anybody. I don't remember things very well. Do you recall telling him that?
It's possible I said that to him.
Would it help if I had played the recording for you?
No, not necessary.
It's not necessary, is it?
No.
Because you did tell Detective Moffat that you have a very difficult time remembering things, right?
Yeah.
And then you told him you have a difficulty getting facts and dates and times right, correct?
Yeah.
And that's not something that everyone has difficulties but you were particular with Detective Moffat in reminding him that you didn't always get the facts right or the dates right or the times right, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. I know that's not easy to acknowledge. Now you
So that was my favorite part. She's just like, and I love how he would say, so if I show you the actual text that you wrote with your name and the date on it, would that help your memory? And she's like, I don't know, maybe, just like, wow.
She doesn't admit to anything. Not even that she said already, I don't remember things very well. She's not even admit to that. Like everything was, I don't know. I can't remember. Maybe, could be, possibly. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Exasperating.
Yeah. But when she was talking to the prosecution, she goes, David got there at 7:30. We went over to the house. We had pizza. I mean, she remembered everything. And then he's like, I don't know if I said that. I could have, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just absolutely. Absolutely. And then let's see if we've got, this is my favorite part now. And this is the other part, just in case I'm doing a recap for you people that have lives and do not have time to watch this. David is like, they were dating, and then he says to him, how long have you been married? He couldn't remember. And then he said, how long have you lived together? And he said, oh, I think we lived together for like 7 or 8 months. And she said, you don't live together now? And he said, no, I live in Salt Lake or Utah somewhere. And Melanie lives in Arizona. Yeah. So she goes, so you don't live together. So he said, so you actually got married so that legally you would not have to, what's the word where you go against each other in a court of law? You would not have to testify against each other. So they got married, lived together for like 7 months, and now they don't even live together. And she's still going by Melanie Gibb, and he's David Warwick. So she's not even used. Tell me that's an honest thing to do. Come on.
Yeah, that's all just so they don't have to testify again. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah. So listen to him. I love his.
See them. And I was coming up for the Book of Mormon Evidence Conference. And then and Melanie and Lori had been wanting to do a podcast. And so I just kind of made a weekend of it. And my plan was to stay in a hotel in Idaho Falls, to be in between both places. But Melanie invited me and said, Lori said, stay here. Don't need to put money in a hotel. We got an extra room for you. So.
And that was in reference to Lori's place?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes for the record?
Yes.
Okay. And can you describe Lori's place that you went and stayed at, just so the jury has an understanding of the layout?
It was, when you walked in, there was a living room and a kitchen, just one room, and then a stairs on the right that went up to the bedrooms and bathrooms.
And when you arrived, who do you recall being at her apartment?
Lori and Alex and Melanie.
What about children? Were there children there?
JJ.
Did you have any occasion to interact with JJ when you arrived there?
Yes, I tried a couple of times.
Had you expressed anything back to Chad about any of these teachings or beliefs that were being discussed?
I just talked to him about Satan and the evil spirits. They don't have that power. It's not going to be given them, and that the gathering of 144,000, that would be done by the prophet or somebody called under his authority.
Would it be fair to say that you'd explain to them that you weren't really accepting these beliefs?
Yeah.
Now, during this weekend, at any time, did you observe anything about Chad and Lori's interaction with each other that gave you?
So that's really interesting. Let me see if I can go to where the prosecution. Okay, this is the best part. I know Pryor is getting a big. There's a lot of people because he's not very nice, and I understand that there's a lot of people that don't like his methods, but I keep going back to like the O.J. Simpson case, how people tore Marcia Clark apart. Like they criticized her hair, they criticized everything about her mothering skills and everything. They just tore her apart because they loved O.J. Simpson, right?
Yeah.
She was a good lawyer and she knew what she was doing. And they know Chad Daybell is a piece of crap and that he's guilty and that he killed these people. So anything John Pryor does in his trying to defend him, they're going to tear him apart. But I think he's hilarious to listen to. And so, I mean, because he just calls them on their crap. And then, of course, they object. And he's like, and
conference in October when Lori and Chad first met. Chad was there to sell books, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, I understand that you've taken a jab at writing books as well, right?
A little bit.
You wrote, and I don't want to misrepresent. I know you wrote one book.
Right.
And when did you write that book?
Right about the time I finished it up, about the time I met Lori. So 2019.
Okay, so let me go back. I got the wrong one here. They both look the same here.
I don't have time. I don't know how much time you want for the details, but that was the whole motivation was,
You divorced your wife because she wasn't taking proper care of your son, Nicholas, and it's all about Nicholas, right?
no, we mutually agreed. We
Okay.
did not want a divorce, but
I-
but we needed to get Nicholas out of the home that he was in because he was suffering some abuses there.
Okay.
If you'd like to go into more, I'd be happy to.
We don't have to.
Okay.
I don't know. I didn't
That's
want to go
fine,
into this
okay.
much, but I just wanted to clarify a few things that were of a concern, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Now, I do want to talk a little bit about an organization called the Seven. I'm sorry.
Yeah, nope, I'm done. Sorry.
No, please go ahead.
I'm done.
Okay. So what he was preaching wasn't consistent with the way he was acting. Is that what you were saying?
It's, at a conference that
Okay. Well, basically, so that's the scene where he kept, and you can see in you can hear in David Warwick's voice how mad he got because he said, well, you were calling Chad Daybell out on the fact that he was sleeping with Lori, even though he was still married, but you were still married and you were sleeping with Melanie, right? And he's like, well, and he explains the whole thing about his divorce. And then he says that he had to save he has a child with Down syndrome. He describes him as a Down syndrome child. I'm like, okay, I don't think that's the proper thing to do. But then he says he had to like save him from his ex-wife because he was being abused. So again, he's the savior.
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy that, so, and I don't know any of the story, but you could just hear in his voice how ticked off he got. But it's just, oh my gosh. And it's going to be interesting to see it all. I don't know how many weeks this trial is going to go on.
I don't know how. I mean, it's just so belabored, this whole thing. And they're just trying to establish that Chad is innocent from being a part of the murders. They already nailed Lori.
Yeah.
Right? She's already done. She's been
convicted. Yeah.
So what are we supposed to believe? She acted on her own when they were completely complicit. I mean, everyone knows. It's just so interesting that this is going to drag out forever. And it's kind of like the OJ Simpson. Like I just watched that. I watched the new special that's out on OJ Simpson right now recently.
Yeah.
And I was blown away by that thing. It took months and months and I forget how long. These people, 2 years. These people were deliberating over or going back and forth. And everyone knows OJ did it.
Yeah.
We all know he did it.
Yeah.
I think even the people who acquitted him, I think most of the people that were cheering for him knew he did it. It wasn't about that. It was about race. It was all about race. And when you come right down to it, this is about, in my mind, this is about what a church that began, its roots are in cult-like behavior.
Right.
And it's watered down and watered down and watered down. But if you go back and you read and you learn about the original church and Joseph Smith and the things that he did, it's all the things that these guys are doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they can pull that out and use it and say, look, here's a precedent. Joseph said this, Joseph said that. Look what he did. Look what, you hide in the cavity of a rock because they're coming to get you. And sometimes you have to lie for God. Sometimes you have to tell lies. Like, Joseph said, I'm not practicing polygamy. What are you talking about?
Yes.
So it justifies this behavior. And when you realize that they feel justified because they have their prophets doing this.
Yeah.
Really, this is about the religion and it's exactly these kind of people. And let's just call a spade for crying out loud. We're dancing around. But really,
that's exactly right. And what I see is you could take, like you said, you could take the characters out. Like Chad Daybell is he brings on people like Joseph Smith brought Sidney Rigdon on and John Bennett on and all these people to do his dirty work that were more talented and smarter and had the skills that that Joseph Smith did not have. You know, Joseph Smith is like the Chad Daybell, and then he brings on Sidney Rigdon and all these other people, you know, and to do the work and to give him the ideas. And it's a script, and all you have to do is like replace the heads.
Yeah.
And it's the same behavior.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you're saying.
Luckily, you know, I don't know. Can we say Joseph Smith killed anyone? No, but we can say some of his followers did.
Well, he had the Danites. I know they started the Danites, and they tried to kill Boggs, you know, Governor Boggs, with good old what's his face.
Ended up, you know, being killed himself. But I'm just saying, when you go a step further to Brigham Young, that's where people start to die.
Oh yeah,
Innocent people were slaughtered, and then he had the whole blood atonement teaching, which they can rely on that as well. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah, it's just fraught. It's fraught from the very beginning of this. Once you realize that and pull all, you know, the curtain, and you can see behind the curtain, you can't unsee it anymore. At least I can't. I don't know if else can. People that go back, I don't understand. Because once you see how the sausage is made, you don't want to eat it anymore, right?
That's right. Well, and you're exactly right, because that's the secret, is to look at this behavior. You see it constantly repeated under the name of God's laws or Satan.
Yeah.
Satan did this. And so we're, you know, and listening to Lori and Chad, they're using God
or Satan
to justify their behavior.
Yeah.
You know, God told us, I saw it in a vision. I felt, and that was perfect segue that you did to close this out, because I want to play a clip that has nothing to do with Lori and Chad or Mormonism, but they're talking about indoctrinated doctrine and what that does to people. And that's exactly what we're talking about. So let me play that.
Muslims in the West are scary.
Yeah. Really high, Andrew. Well, they already want me dead. I'm over the fear. I'm so sick and tired of being silenced for so long that I don't care. The truth is that even if you have a buddy that you work with or that you go to school with, who is a great person, kind, generous, you know, fun-loving, that person more likely than not holds very deeply scary anti-Semitic, homophobic, anti-women views. But as soon as you start to criticize Islam, it's like, oh my gosh, you're being racist, you're xenophobic, you're Islamophobic. Well, that's by design. That's to keep you quiet. In Iran, if you criticize Islam, you are going to be hanging from a crane the next day, right? But they can't do that in the West. So how are we going to stop people from criticizing Islam? We'll find a way to do that, and that's what they found. So, and it works perfectly, unfortunately, because there's a lot of useful idiots out there.
Is there something inherent to the text that is different than to Jewish text, Christian text?
72 virgins. Well, I think that the inherent difference is Islam really teaches.
What percentage do you think of Muslims in the West are ideologically captured?
Oh, that's a complicated question. When you ask ideologically captured, that's what makes it complicated.
What I'm interested in here is I come from a Jewish background, but secular, atheist. I don't remember ever hearing the word God in my life, even though we went to synagogue once or twice a year and there were bar mitzvahs, but it was a cultural thing. I didn't, you know. And I've got a friend who seemed to be the same, but Muslim. And we lived in a different country. We were in Argentina. We both lived.
This is just unheard of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that person may not necessarily want to push those views on others. You know, if we're asking the percentage of the people that would try to push this hate, into the public sphere, into policy, into government, into media, into law enforcement, stuff like that, then thankfully it's a lower number. So it's that's what we're dealing with. You know, most Muslims are just like I was, just raised in normalized anti-Semitism, for example, to the point that you don't even know that that's a bad thing, because it's just, well, obviously this is the way it is. And so you have to go through this really difficult process of, first of all, acknowledging that you carry this irrational hate in you, forgiving yourself for.
So what she's talking about there, and this is the thing that I think is so interesting about this whole Israeli thing right now, and that's what they're kind of talking about, is if you live in Gilbert, Arizona, or Rexburg, Idaho, or Utah, it's not like living in the rest of the United States. You go to Costco and there's food storage and Book of Mormons and children's books that are all about Jesus and the church and the temple in Costco. You don't see that in Portland, Oregon. You know, it's in the schools, it's in your Congress, it's in your state representatives, it's everywhere. You are so indoctrinated into the teachings of the Mormon Church in these areas of the country that are populated that it becomes just part of your natural thinking. And outside of that, like my husband said to me, we were talking the other day, and he said something about who did you date in high school? And I said, nobody. And so I said, well, I had one boyfriend. He said, was he a member of the church? I said, no. I said, there were two members of the church, me and my friend, in the whole entire high school. That's how I grew up. So my family didn't grow up with this indoctrination where these people live, eat, breathe. And so the ideas that they come up with are just normalized.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And that's the scary part.
It's somebody said, I wish I could remember who said this or wrote it. Something about if you concentrate any religion in too close of an environment and it's highly concentrated, it starts to stink. It starts to like mutate and turn into this horrible toxic waste, because it's like inbreeding where there's, or like an echo chamber, or like too much mixing, it starts to turn weird. And you need to have fresh thought, fresh beliefs, fresh blood, fresh thought theories coming from the outside, where if you just sit there and marinate in your own juices, it is not a healthy environment. And that's what happens with like the FLDS or any of these communal places where they're all just, inbreeding. Well, Salt Lake, well, not even Salt Lake, where I live, Utah, Gilbert, Arizona, or Mesa, or any of those areas there, or Idaho, are highly condensed Mormonism.
Yeah.
Without enough mixing with the rest of the world, and it gets really weird. It starts crazy.
It really does. And when she was talking about the 72, I think she's talking about Islam and the 72 virgins that you would get if you sacrifice your life. And I remember when I first left the church, and I said to my husband, when was the last time you read section 132 of the Doctrine and Covenants? And he's like, I don't know. So I read it to him, and he goes, it doesn't say that, because it's talking about virgins and how you will be given these virgins and you'll get 10 virgins. And I don't think people even read that. And even when they teach it in Sunday school, they'll proof text it.
They skip over the bad parts.
Yeah.
It's bad.
But they don't take it out. It's not been taken out.
They won't take it out because they know if they do that, they're going to be nailed. Everyone's going to call them out and be like, "Oh, see what you did? You took that out." They can't, but because it's part of who we are, and they still believe it.
Yeah, Yeah.
leaders, they still believe that polygamy BS.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. It's so great. Well, I just hope that we've done a huge recap for people that have not been following this. And I really am anxious to follow what Pryor is going to do with Melanie Gibbs and David Warwick, because she is more involved in this than she wants people to think she is. And she's trying to put on this cover, this air. And it reminds me, like, this whole trial is like one big fast and testimony meeting.
Yeah.
You know, you've always got those people that every month they get up there and they'll say, you know, I was praying and I just really felt like I should, you know, and you're just like, you know, you hear the stories. I went to the temple. I couldn't find my great grandmother. While I was in the temple, this person walked by that had the same name and they said, I knew your grandmother. I mean, I don't know what they go on, and you're like, just shut up, just stop it.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So this will be interesting because I think you're right. I think you're right about Melanie. She was way more involved. She believed this whole light dark thing. And once you become a zombie, you're dead. That was coming. And so for her to say, oh, you know, because she talked to that woman, she let the cat out of the bag. And I'm so glad that woman recorded it, because now we know the real Melanie. She spilled the beans in that conversation.
Yeah.
She let on that she really wasn't surprised that Charles died, and that, you know, oh, well, the two little kids are missing now. Well, that's because they're zombies. So that's what's going to happen. She wasn't even worried about it. But now, you know, when she knew she was recording for the police, she was playing a different part, wasn't she?
Yeah.
And
which lets you know that she knows what's right and what's wrong, because she's playing up. And then when she knew where that they could possibly hold her accountable, her story changed.
Yes.
So yeah. So.
She knows. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have to make a little trip to Gilbert. I'm going to go visit some Gilbert wards until I find that, because I'm going to be a spy.
That would be fun.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Anyway, well, thanks for bringing me on.
Thank you for gossiping with me tonight. It was so fun.
Yeah. It was fun for me to kind of get back into it, because I watched for a while and I was like, oh, this is so long and drawn out.
Yeah.
It was good to get back in and kind of get my feet wet again on what's happening right now with Melanie's testimony. Yeah, this is a messy deal.
Well, and I was the same way when it first started. I think the very first day I watched it, the sound quality was so bad. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to watch this. And then it was the same testimony that went through Lori's thing. So I thought, this is just deja vu all over again. And so, but it's just been the last couple of days that I clicked on it real quickly. And there's just been a few little moments like that thing with Pryor where he called David Warwick on the fact that he was, you know, having an affair. And yet he was, you know, couldn't do business on Sunday because that's just, you know, against his principles. And, you know, and then he's taking care of his poor son with Down syndrome. And I guess Melanie has a child with some kind of a disability too. I was trying to find some stuff on her, because she also, I think she has like 7 kids or something, and she divorced her husband. So I want that backstory. So anybody that knows it, email me that story. I want that dirt. But yeah, there's a lot more to this than we're being told, for sure.
Yeah, well, and there was such a big group that were in it, believers, and that were buying all of Chad's books and all of this light dark thing. They're all pretending like they didn't know how bad it was going, and maybe they didn't. But it was a slippery slope.
Well, and then, you know, even Melanie was talking about being in the prayer circles with Lori at her house when they were trying to cast out evil spirits. And it's like, gee, prayer circles, where have I heard that before? Oh, did you guys just make that up? No, that's a temple ritual. The church they've got their fingers in it. There's too much stuff that they can't stand up and go, this doesn't have anything to do. We don't teach that. I'm like, you kind of do.
Yeah.
You know, so.
They do.
So, all right. Well, thank you again. I think we've had a really fun night.
Yep, that was fun. Thank you.
We'll see what kind of brouhaha we can mess up for next week.
Okay.
If you come up with anything, let me know. All right. Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us on She Became Visible. I hope we filled you up and we kind of spurred some interest. You can start watching the trial now. It's all over YouTube. You won't have a hard time finding it. So anyway. All right. Well, good night, everyone. And thanks for joining us, and tune in next week. We'll keep you wondering what it's going to be about.
Good night.